I've seen a fair share of film whenever it comes to romance, romance dramas, romance comedies, and much more. And with that, I've seen many different types of tropes, some being overplayed, others not played enough, some very enjoyable, and others not so much. With romance TV shows and movies, whether it's a Western film, a Korean film, or wherever else, nothing gets me on the level of feeling like my heart is being ripped out, like the trope that is words left unspoken. This is a trope where a situation, miscommunication, a disagreement, or some kind of outside force will occur between the two main leads, usually causing them to never say how they really feel in that moment. And eventually, those words are never said, and the other lead or both leads never actually know how each other feel until it's later revealed. But at this point, it's either years later or both of them have moved on with their lives, or worst case scenario, one of them has passed away. This is a trope I don't really see too many people talk about, and I could be wrong, I might just not be on that side of the internet, but it always seems to get swept under the rug, with most people usually preferring enemies to lovers, fake relationships, love triangles, workplace romance, and much more. And I'm not opposed to those at all. It's definitely understandable of why those tropes are so popular and used the most in films. While with the words left unspoken trope, it's for sure to get some people annoyed, upset, and possibly not even want to continue the show or movie, with many fans always wanting to believe that the couple ended up together, and some even coming to their own conclusion that the ending never happened. And I'll admit that this trope is definitely the worst to experience whenever you're rooting so hard for the characters to work it out and be together. But this trope is honestly something that I've grown to appreciate and love, because the sad reality is that this trope is so realistic. How many times in real life have we liked someone and missed the opportunity to tell them how we really felt? And this doesn't just apply to a crush or a significant other. It can also apply to a family member or a friend, because this has happened to everyone at some point in our lives. There is a moment when you really want to say something, you really want to get something off your chest, and before we knew it, the time to say it was up. This is one of those tragic tropes that people have a love-hate relationship with. And the reason we don't see it that much is because people watch romance shows and romance movies to enjoy them. And some even use these shows and movies to cope with whatever is happening in their real lives. Whether it's to cope with love itself, heartbreak, a lack of love in their life, or the lack of knowledge about love, or more. Not too many people want to watch a romance that doesn't have a happy ending, which is why one of the most used tropes, which I consider to be the sister to this trope, is miscommunication. This trope is used so much throughout K-dramas, rom-coms, and just romance dramas in general. So much so that it's become its own meme. And the reason why I call it the sister trope to the words left unspoken trope is because you cannot do, at least from what I've seen, the words left unspoken trope without literally pocketing in the miscommunication trope. There will always be some sort of miscommunication that leads to the words left unspoken. But whenever the trope of miscommunication is by itself, it will almost always have a happier ending than words left unspoken. Just a quick note, I'm not going to go into too much detail on these shows that I'm giving examples of, because these are shows I do want to later on do a review over, so I don't want to repeat anything that I'm already going to say in the review. The 2015 K-drama Reply 1988, which is a part of an entire trilogy that is now called the Reply series, shows a love triangle between childhood best friends Tak, Doksan, and Jungwon. And pretty much it is revealed towards the end of the series that Jungwon had actually liked Doksan for a very long time before Doksan even had feelings for him and before Tak even realized he had feelings for her. But because he was so afraid of telling his friends that he liked her, he was so afraid of feeling embarrassed about it, and maybe even a little shy that she might not have liked him back, he ended up never telling her. And when Doksan actually starts showing interest in him, it was already too late because Tak tells him and the rest of the guys that he actually has feelings for Doksan, causing Junghwan to kind of take a step back and push his feelings down for the sake of Tak's feelings. This pretty much leads to a series of events where Junghwan keeps being 10 steps behind Tak in every situation whenever it comes to Doksan. And as years pass and they all reunite, he finally reveals his words that were left unspoken, letting her know how much he really liked her all the times that they were friends and they were hanging out together. Like I said earlier, he was already 10 steps behind Tak because Doksan had already moved on from him. And even if he wouldn't have played his words off as a joke, I think they both knew that she no longer had feelings for him and it was way too late. So this was literally a miscommunication where he had plenty of time to let her know how he felt, but because he didn't, it ended up backfiring for him and leading to words left unspoken that he did actually end up telling her, but like I said, it was way too late. '20th Century Girl is pretty much a show that embodies this trope a little too well, mostly because of the reality that both of these characters are teenagers, so majority of the things that are happening to them, they literally do not have control over, and it makes the entire trope even more of a hard watch in this one. So the main lead, Na Bora, ends up having to lie to Woonho, who is her love interest in the film, due to what I would call an innocent mistake when she finds out her best friend actually has a crush on him. And to spare her friend's feelings from knowing the truth, she ends up taking it into her own hands and going to tell Woonho that pretty much she was sorry and that she hoped he didn't get the wrong idea because she doesn't like him, not knowing that Wonho wrote an entire letter confessing his feelings for her and pretty much telling her that he had liked her way before she even knew it. So because she was trying to quickly get away from the whole interaction before she broke down, Wonho isn't able to give her the letter, and they spend the rest of their time with awkward interactions because she's trying to set her friend up with him the whole time. And once her friend actually finds out that she has a crush on him, she lets Wonho know, and he tries to meet with her the night before he's about to leave to New Zealand, which I left out, by the way. He's literally about to go back to New Zealand, which is what I was talking about whenever I meant that they had no control over everything, because this is not his choice. His mom wants him to move back. And so whenever he tries to meet up with her, he's not aware that Bora's brother was rushed to the hospital, so she spent the entire night at the hospital, and he spent the entire night out in front of her house waiting for her, calling her. And while they did get to see each other before he left to New Zealand and they both told each other they like each other, I think the saddest part about this entire movie is that she never actually gets to read the letter. She never gets to read it. And the cherry on top of the melted ice cream is the fact that he literally dies. He never gets to go back and visit her. They stop writing each other, and we all know how it ends, but I don't know. I think we can understand the miscommunication that led to the unspoken words that were the letter. It just won't be the same to me. It's literally a form of his true thoughts that he sat down and wrote, and she'll never get to read it. Saying that they like each other in person is beautiful, but something about that letter was just so unreplaceable. So 2521 is another show that handles this trope way too well. It's very, very realistic, and the whole mess of the miscommunication that leads up to everything is so sad to watch because they both just had a lack of understanding for their situations. Yijin wasn't understanding how Hito felt about literally not being able to see him, barely being able to call, and the fact that she had been dealing with this even before he left to New York, and the fact that she wanted to talk about all the hardships with him, but he wasn't allowing himself to do that. But Hito wasn't understanding as well of what he was going through mentally, of being in an area that just got attacked, where people died, having to report about people's deaths every day, and even being afraid for your life, and being away from home, and being in a place where you were not familiar with anyone or anything there at a time of tragedy. And I think one of the most realistic things to come out of this situation as well, and why it is always good if you're in a heated argument or when you're about to be in a heated argument with your significant other or whoever, it is always good to step away from the moment, to take time to process everything, to think about how you feel, to think about how they feel, what's been said, and then after you've processed as much as you can, go back to the person and have a clear conversation. Because Hito didn't process anything until after she had already decided to break up with Yijin, and when she finally did process everything that had happened, she regretted it and even wrote in her journal what she wished she would have said, which eventually her journal gets lost and he comes across her journal and finds what she wrote of what she wished she would have said instead, and he literally responds to it by writing in their journal. But he never gives the journal back because he didn't think he would see her again, and he didn't think that she wanted to see him. So he ends up giving the book to the bookstore owner, who forgets to give her the book, and then literally 20 years later, the bookstore owner ends up giving the book to her daughter, and she ends up reading the other half of the book, but like it's 20 years late. She's moved on with her life, he's moved on with his life, and it's just a really sad but very realistic ending. Before we continue on to the next subject, if you haven't seen the movie The Notebook, I'm letting you know I'm about to spoil it, so just a heads up. One of the biggest examples of miscommunication and words left unspoken but with a happy ending is the Western film The Notebook. It's become a classic, and one of the reasons why it's so loved is because they show a relationship with real problems. They show that the relationship isn't perfect, they show arguments, and even a bit of toxicity that is romanticized, and they even show an outside force forcing the relationship to break up with a bit of miscommunication, only for the couple to find each other later on in the film and grow old together, eventually dying in the same bed. It's the epitome of what a lot of us want to experience, a quote-unquote real love that lasts forever until the day we die. And it also gives hope to those who have had a difficult relationship or has had a breakup with the person they thought they would be with for the rest of their lives. It gives them hope that they'll meet back together in the future and all the bad will be behind them. But the reality is that it's actually not the most realistic thing. While yes, the story of The Notebook can happen in real life, it's definitely not as easy as it appears in a film, where they showed them reuniting and how happy they were at old age. They don't show the tough conversations that they'll have to have after they get back together, especially after not seeing each other for years. They don't show the real conversations of what they both want and the type of boundaries they need to put up. They don't show the conversations about the toxicity that was in their past relationship. They don't show the conversations of the mistakes they made the first time that they were together. And also, there is the possibility of them even having an off and on relationship, or even the possibility of having miscommunication again and breaking up once again. Relationships take a lot of work. They're not as easy as they appear on film. It's a lot of sacrifice, it's a lot of putting your pride to the side, becoming better for you and your partner, the will to always try your best to understand your partner, but also have an understanding that you're not going to agree on everything. And if you don't agree on everything, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not meant to be together. And so much more goes into a relationship. So when presented with a film that tackles on real problems that relationships actually have to go through, and even sometimes having the couple not end up together because of those issues, it hits home, and it's something that a lot of us do not want to see because it's quote unquote too real. Which is why I do appreciate it so much whenever we get these real moments in film. So that is all for the video. This was just a random topic I wanted to talk about. I hope everyone enjoyed it. If you did, please give a like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments down below what you thought about it. I hope everyone has a great day. Bye bye!